Smoking good episode there, Brandon Hauk. Okay, let's get on with
Thanks.
we got meteorologist Mark here and our feature interview of the night coming up. Let's go. Watch.
Just got the fat check for
My name Mark Ingalls.
pushing that agenda. It says here, HARP, climate change, whatever, in my bank account.
All right, meteorologist Mark. Have at her,
Good
bud.
evening. Our featured guest tonight is Dakota Smith. Dakota is a meteorologist in Colorado. If you are into weather and on Blue Sky or X or Facebook, you may have seen his GIFs. He puts together the spectacular satellite image GIFs. He has a real talent for finding those beautiful weather phenomena throughout the world. And so we're really excited to have him on. Dakota, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, and then I've got a few questions for you.
I just
Sure.
wanted to say
Yeah.
hi, that I joined the panel. So, hey, Mark, really appreciate your comments on mental health thing.
Mike, be ready with your question for Dakota later on.
Awesome.
All right, Dakota, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so name's Dakota. I'm out in Colorado, and I've been out here for about almost 10 years now. Actually, yeah, over 10 years. I went to Penn State for my undergrad in meteorology, and then went out to Colorado State for my master's in atmospheric science. Did some like climate research there. Found out it wasn't my thing. Tried to figure out like what the heck do I want to do with weather. Like I knew it was weather. I feel like a lot of folks end up in this situation where like they want to work with weather but don't really know their like what exactly they want to do. So I worked on TV for a while. I wasn't on air, but I was a producer at Weather Nation. It's like sort of like the Weather Channel, but a little like I don't know lower scale. Did some social science research for a while, and now I've ended up making satellite imagery for a living, and it's sort of what I was doing as a hobby, and became my job. So I really like making satellite imagery, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know if there's how much detail I should go into, but yeah,
This is
it's
your program. You can go in as much detail as you want. I want to know what got you into weather originally.
it was snow. Definitely weather like blizzards. I grew up in Maryland, and we would get some of those nor'easters, or some of the like the ones that sort of scoot south of the Northeast. And like I was in the blizzard in '96, which hammered us. And then I think that one was the one, even though I was like 4 or 3 or something. I think that's the one that really got me into it. I also went through Hurricane Isabel, which I think probably sparked my interest a little bit later in life, like when I was in middle school. But it was snow. Snow is still my favorite thing. Sort of a bummer this year. We didn't really get that big snowstorm that we usually get in March or early April. We had a bunch of like tiny snowstorms. But yeah, definitely snow. I don't know. I love a good blizzard in the
Do
spring or
you
in the winter.
participate in the winter sports then, since you're in Colorado?
I snowboard, yeah. Yeah, I'm a
Okay,
snowboarder.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
I
expensive though. I rarely get out and do it.
was going to say you have the hair for it to be a snowboarder.
Thank you.
So you with the satellite imagery, of course, that's what most folks here are going to know you about if they know you. Um,
Sure.
Tell us about the first time you had one of those images go viral.
Yeah, so there are actually two occasions that come to mind. The first one was Hurricane Harvey, which made landfall on the Texas Gulf Coast in 2017. And that was the first major hurricane we had made like make landfall in the continental United States in over 10 years, I think. But we also had this brand new satellite, GOES 16, up that was sending back 1 minute, sometimes 30-second imagery of these storms. And I was grabbing the imagery. I sort of forget where I was grabbing it from, but I was grabbing it and I posted like a really short GIF because I didn't know what I was doing. I just like wanted to get something out to like share it, and it didn't really go viral. I think it was like somewhere a couple hundred retweets or something. But for the time, I was like blown away. I was like, oh wow, people really like this stuff, and that sort of got me like continuing to post it because a lot of people interacted with it and were asking questions about it. And so we had Go 16 given all this awesome data and imagery, and then comes along Hurricane Dorian 2 years later in 2019. That was a crazy storm. Cat 5 sort of stalled on Grand Bahama and produced this crazy imagery of this eye, just a mesmerizing, intense eye. And I posted actually something with lightning. It wasn't actually when, it was when Dorian was forming. And I just like, it was a random post. I was like 2 a.m. or something at night, and I posted it. And that is to this day my most viral tweet, I guess not most viral thing ever on social media. But it got like, it was like I think it was like the most shared thing on Twitter that day. It was so cool to share that with everyone. And a lot of people, the coolest thing about that is like all these people were realizing that hurricanes have lightning, tropical systems have lightning, which is something, I didn't pay attention to very much as a meteorologist. Like I wasn't a tropical meteorologist, but I got all these questions about lightning in tropical systems. So those are two examples that come to mind.
I think we knew tropical systems had lightning, but I think the GOES 16 series has really illuminated that for us, pun intended.
Yeah.
And
Well, we didn't
just how
have
much lightning there is.
Yeah, we didn't have the geostationary lightning mapper. And so when GOES 16 went up, we got to see all this really cool stuff. And yeah, I think illuminated for people, just non-weather people, but also meteorologists, really, brought it to the forefront. Like, wow, this is we can actually see this in supercells and in cold fronts and thunder snow, all sorts of examples.
Yeah, I before this here in BC, I was at a renewable energy company in Oregon, and Central Oregon has a significant radar gap. And so when there were thunderstorms approaching these systems or approaching the wind turbines, a lot of times we would watch the lightning mapper to try and get a position on it because if we were looking at radar alone, we would the wind from these storms would hit our wind farms before we actually saw it on the radar. So the radar was mostly useless for us. It was all about the lightning mapper.
Well, I spent
Hmm.
most of my chasing and watching career having to use that in Canada until like the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, lightning data is because Canada, once you get really away from the people where the good storms are, there's not good radar.
Well, and there wasn't
Um,
good radar here, but carry on.
yeah, so we were talking a little bit about the Hunga Tonga volcanic eruption. Did you do any satellite analysis of that event? Because I know that was pretty spectacular with how high the ash plume went into the atmosphere.
Yeah, that was, I think, for a lot of meteorologists, depending even. I remember someone saying after that happened, it was like a moment in their career. I think they were doing some sort of atmospheric composition study, and it was like a moment in the career that they'll probably never have. So sort of like a generational moment, and one of the most explosive volcanic eruptions in recent memory. And funny about that, I was on parental leave. I had a 1 month old at the time, and it happened overnight. I think it was like midnight or something, my time. And I I wasn't working, so I wasn't like actively making the imagery, but I was awake, and the baby was like in a little bit of a nap, and I saw it happening. I think I saw it a little bit late, and I did post some stuff for that event. And yeah, that imagery is incredible. It looks like a bomb goes off, and the shock waves that ripple. There's like a full disk image from these images would be from Himawari 8, the Japanese geostationary satellite, and the waves that go out from it. To me, was the coolest image. The geocolor view of like up close was really neat too, but the ones where you can see the waves just sort of blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah, those the shock wave. So when that I was prepping for nights, and so I was up when it erupted too, and we weren't expecting a tsunami in anywhere near North America, and then when I woke up, my wife told me that we were in a tsunami advisory, and that didn't make sense to me because like it was a volcanic eruption and it was so far away. And I think I saw research that showed that the tsunami was amplified by the shock wave in the atmosphere. I don't
Oh
know how
wow.
true that is, but that is the research that I saw on the subject, and that you could see it on the satellite. Um, the we're really going to test my knowledge of the atmosphere here, because the ash plume shot through the troposphere, which is the lowest level, shot through the stratosphere, which is the next level, and then it went into the next level layer that I can't, maybe the mesosphere, I can't remember what it's called, but
Yeah,
we could
mesosphere.
tell because of the, oh, thank you. um, we could tell because of the temperature on the infrared satellite that it was going through these different layers, and it was such a bizarre thing to see. It was just really cool.
I actually didn't
So
even know that. I knew it went to the stratosphere because there's been a lot of research done on how much water vapor it's injected into the stratosphere. You know, has implications for global temperature. But I did not know about the mesosphere. That's crazy. Got that high.
yeah, so like when you look at it, when you look at a supercell, for the radio listeners and the YouTube guys, when you look at the supercell thunderstorm, the center of it usually has the coldest temperatures because those are the highest clouds. But with the ash plume in the stratosphere, in the troposphere, temperature gets colder as you go up. You know this as you go up the mountains and stuff like that. In the troposphere, or sorry, in the stratosphere, that reverses, and the temperature gets warmer with altitude. And then in the mesosphere, it gets colder with altitude again. And so we saw these layers where the satellite looked weird, because you had the outer layer was cold because it was the lower elevation stuff, and then you had a big area of actually warmer clouds, and then you had a small area in the middle of it getting colder again as it went through these layers in the atmosphere. Hunga Tonga was the biggest volcanic eruption to happen in the satellite era, um, which would make it bigger than Pinatubo in 1992. I think that was Pinatubo in 92. I don't know. I wasn't here
Correct.
for it. Thank you, Joey.
I
Joey
recall it.
was here for Krakatoa in the 19th century.
That's true. Yeah, I've been around a long friggin' time there, lads.
Anyway, so that was just an incredible event, and it's the satellite imagery that that really helped us understand that event. We do have a question in the live chat. Shelley asks about other scientists using your imagery that you pull up, Dakota.
Yeah, all the time. I get requests from folks in media, on the news, online media, but also scientists, and then folks in operational positions as well, like National Weather Service, use the imagery all the time. So yeah, I could think of a couple examples of scientists using it. So it's really neat.
I think we should point out this imagery is freely accessible to everyone. It's just Dakota has the talent for finding these and putting them together with the parameters that really, really look really special. So I'm going to queue up Brandon Hauk here after this question. So Brandon, be ready. Um, but well, I want to remember the question I was just going to ask you, but that's how the radio goes, right?
That's when you need your
Uh,
mother to be like, it must not have been very important.
right? No, my mom's thing was think before you speak, because I'd start off with and she'd be like, think about what you want to ask before you start saying it. Um, I wanna ask you about your transition through your different stages. Like, was it difficult to transition from research to television to the sphere where you're at now?
I think no. I think mainly because I just knew research wasn't like my thing. It was a lot of computer programming. That was most of the job, a lot of writing, and I realized that was like not my thing. I was not gonna get a usually get a PhD after a master's if research is your thing. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna get the master's and figure out what the heck I want to do. And so everything just seemed like an opportunity and like something, a way to do something new and fun. And TV had its difficulties, shift work, really like early, late shifts, however you look at it. And the culture is a lot different too. But the work itself was a lot of fun. I was a TV producer for a while, and then I was like a digital meteorologist for a minute, and just a lot of lot of fun stuff to do. But I think research was the hardest thing for me. So transitioning away from that was like easier than continuing with the research. So it's sort of funny.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pitch to Brandon with his question, and then Joey, you're on deck.
All right.
All right. So I guess I shall ask, what is probably the most interesting weather phenomenon that you found on a satellite imagery, just randomly as looking
I
around?
love this question. I absolutely love this question. Something called an actinoform cloud. If you've never heard of this, that is normal because when I first saw it on satellite, I didn't even know what it was, and I posted. I was just like, "Here it is," and I had a couple meteorologists say, "Oh yeah, this is an actinoform cloud." And what they are, they travel in groups over usually the Eastern Pacific. They can be in other ocean basins as well, but generally speaking, Eastern Pacific. They are clusters of stratocumulus, marine stratocumulus clouds, and they form these like tentacle, like it's almost like a flower, but I call them like tentacles because they sort of look like tentacles and they swirl. They even have an eye sometimes. Um, and they're like sort of segmented, and they are the weirdest, coolest thing I think on satellite imagery. And I call them Strato Cthulhu because they remind me of like tentacles or whatever. But if you just like Google it or Google like actinoform satellite imagery, and a couple examples should come up. Yeah, easily the coolest thing. And then honorable mention, I can't leave out von Karman vortices. They're also one of the coolest things to look at satellite imagery, just mesmerizing views. And there's a couple spots in the world, Guadalupe Island, just off the coast of Mexico and the Eastern Pacific. And then, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Jeju Island, off the coast of, I believe it's Japan, produces a lot of von Karman vortices. And those are just swirling little vortices that form in a line. So you have all these vortices in a row, and they sort of feed off of each other. So generally, things that spin are pretty. That's sort of my motto. So anything that spins, I think, is really pretty and really cool to look at.
To add a little light, it's kind of like von Karman vortices are kind of like if you're walking with your hands out in the pool and then you see the little whirlpool spin up behind your hands. That's kind of what's going on there.
Yeah, and they only really form where air is being separated by something, and then the air comes back around. So like an island, they form a lot on mountainous islands where the air is sort of pushed around the island and it comes back, and then sort of makes a swirl on the other end of it.
Yeah, and I guess these would be easiest to see over water just because there's more moisture, right? So you're going to have cloud cover more often.
Yeah, because they're like everywhere, right? But we can only see them if clouds are there to depict it. So yeah, that's a good point.
Right. All right, Joey, let's hear it.
Yeah, okay. So can you like see my house from there? No, I'm kidding.
No.
Okay, so
Okay. Our satellites are not that good.
you were talking earlier about the eye wall of the hurricane and the fantastic lightning imagery you were pulling out, and I'd like you to just elaborate a little bit on the relationship between the lightning and the eye wall, the rapid intensification of the hurricane.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not completely read up on tropical research in general because rapid intensification is a very much ongoing research topic. But generally speaking, when you see lightning within an eye wall, it usually indicates some sort of intensity change. So at times, yeah, we get a lot of convective towers going up in the eye wall, and then we get all this lightning, and usually it's like, hey, yeah, this thing is bombing out right now, becoming like a Cat 4 or Cat 5. But you can also see it in weakening storms as well in the eye wall. And the lightning is not just in the eye wall. Most of the lightning within a hurricane is in the outer bands, because I think it's where you get some of the more like deeper thunderstorms. So even in like a weak tropical storm, you can see lightning in the outer bands. But yeah, I think intensity changes is usually when you get this lightning in the eye wall.
Excellent. Yeah. Mike McGregor's been on the panel. He's been quiet all night. We got Hilding still here. He might have a question. Mark, who do you think we should roll with here?
Yeah, let's pitch to Mike and we'll say Hilding's on deck.
All right, I got a question. One of my all-time favorite weather events is supercell thunderstorms. what is your top list of satellite images that you've seen of supercell thunderstorms? What's the most unique satellite imagery you've seen of supercell thunderstorms developing? Or
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Um, you know, so I picking up specific examples is a little tough, but there's one I remember that went. It was a lone supercell in the Midwest. I believe it brought a bunch of hail and maybe a tornado to Chicago, the Chicago area, and it was a standalone supercell. I believe it was 2022. I think I'm not quite sure on that. But anything, whenever you have just a discrete supercell and there's nothing else around it, to me that's the coolest thing because you can really get a feel for the cloud top, and they're not all merged together. You can really get a nice view of it. That one comes to mind, and then I have no idea the date, but I remember there was a supercell in Argentina that produced one of the most impressive cloud tops and overshooting tops I've ever seen. It was like very laminar and smooth, and just pronounced. It sort of looked like a beating drum, and it was just remarkable. I should actually look for that image because I don't quite remember what the date was on that, but that comes to mind. And then I feel like almost every year we have a couple events that just sort of blow my mind and um, remind me how cool thunderstorms are. Even yesterday, there was a supercell south of San Antonio that produced some hail and wind that I posted on Blue Sky, and I think there's a couple of the places you can find it. And that was a really cool one too, and just a really pronounced above anvil cirrus plume. Usually, when the storms have above anvil cirrus plumes, you know they mean business. So yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I like that a lot. Supercells are awesome. So
is there
A
anything that
lot
you've
of
seen from Manitoba or the prairies that really interests you over the years that you've worked?
hmm, nothing immediately comes to mind. Um, I have made imagery, of course, of the area, but yeah, nothing immediately comes to mind. I'm sure that I have some storm imagery that I've posted somewhere at some point. Um, yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
not
a lot of
I'd
a
a
agree
lot
great
with
of
answer
that,
there.
eh?
a lot of people here in North America may not realize that Argentina actually has pretty significant severe weather. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so they have a pretty similar setup to like our plains, right? There's a mountain range, they got a moisture source, and then they're got pretty elevated plains. And yeah, there's actually a research campaign, Relampago, a couple of years ago that was there to study big hail, I think, in Argentina. And yeah, sometimes because of that field campaign, we'll send our mesosectors to look at it, which means we could get this 1 minute or 30-second imagery of the storms. And I believe that that's some of the biggest hail in the world. They may even have the record. I can't quite remember,
Really?
but they have insane hail. Yeah, I don't actually know if that's 100% true, but I think it's like besides the U.S., I think they have the biggest hail in the world. Um,
Oh, Australia
I,
gets
I
some
actually
big
don't know who
hail.
hold. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, Frankie's always going on
Um,
about that one. Hilding
What about the
Donaldson.
large hail?
Yeah, the
At,
large
at
hail.
Vivian, South Dakota had the biggest hailstone ever.
oh, there you go.
Hail's your favorite, eh, Frankie?
It's like if Vivian, South Dakota had the biggest hailstone in the world.
What would happen if a hailstone was the size of Vivian, South Dakota, Frankie?
Then it'll be big destruction.
Big destruction. Hilding Donaldson.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Um, Dakota, you stated that you started studying weather because of snowstorms on the East Coast in Maryland. And that's one of the things that got me really interested in the weather across the world was that my wife came from Maryland, and I spent 2 winters in Hagerstown, Maryland. And
Nice.
93, we had a March blizzard that choked the roads up for like a week. And then in 94, we had 40 below in Hagerstown, Maryland, which
Wow.
was the lowest that it had been since the 1800s sometime. And I wondered if you had looked into any of those.
Not from a satellite perspective, but that is something I'm working on. Is creating a sort of an archived database of
Mhm.
old weather events when it comes to satellite imagery. And yeah, some of the big East Coast snowstorms are on that list, including '93 and '96, and then
Well, and
there's a
the big
couple in
one
the
in
early 2000s too.
1991 as well, too, eh? The George
Mhm.
Clooney storm.
Right.
Oh, the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How difficult is it to acquire the old imagery?
it's not that bad. You have to do a couple things, and you work with the data a little bit differently too. That's probably the hardest part. Is getting the data is like not a big deal, but like working with it, there are little quirks here and there because things have changed.
Yeah, let me know when you have the satellite imagery for the 1962 Columbus Day storm.
That might be a little tough.
I don't think they even had weather satellites back then.
No.
I
Yeah,
remember.
it'd be a little tough.
Actually, Mount St. Helens would be really cool. I've seen a few pictures, but like to have an animated loop of 1980 Mount St. Helens, that'd be really neat.
That exists.
That
Yeah,
would.
that exists. We don't. I don't have. I've never made an image of it, but one of my colleagues has, and it's a really cool. Like it's like a couple frames, right? Because pretty low quality satellite.
Well, and it was like
There
every half
is
hour. Go ahead,
there is a
Mike.
Something like that. Maybe
website.
even an hour.
There is a website where you can view archived satellite images. I'm not sure if it's still available, but it's part of. You don't have to look it up, but they have archived satellite images dating back to the 1970s with all the GOS satellites. I think I had a project I did a while back, and I was able to see the cloud tops from way back in the day. It's available, I guess, as he mentioned, but it's quite cool that we can access that nowadays.
Actually, that's a really good point, Mike, because I can remember when I was a kid 20 years ago, um, if you wanted to see satellite imagery, you had to watch the Weather Channel, or I guess up here, the Weather Network, right? And you waited for local on the eights to come on, and you watched their smooth radar image that was never the map area that you wanted it to be, and the satellite imagery sucked, and that was it. And now, like, I can pull it up on my phone.
Yeah,
It is
well,
crazy
I
the
think 20 years
advancements.
ago, still, Environment Canada had some basic satellite imagery. And that was like all you really had going back 20 years ago for a lot of places like here.